Welcome to the InFlow Podcast. I am your host, Michelle Bosch. I see a gaping hole across society that focuses on the outer work and forgets about the inner work, when what we really need is to bridge the gap between prosperity and spirituality to live a life in flow, with inflows of light, inflows of cash, inflows of creativity, inflows of grace in our lives. Each week, join me for powerful messages and interviews that will leave you inspired and ready to step into flow in your higher work. So now, let's go. Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Bosch. Excited to be coming to you again. Thank you so much for letting me into your world and into your life. And today's topic for today's podcast is something that I think is everyone is always looking to be more productive. And I think that a lot of you are going to resonate with this and are going to find valuable, actionable things that you can take from this podcast. From this episode. So today I wanted to describe, because I've had quite a bit of people ask about how we get so much done, sometimes in a week, sometimes in a month, sometimes in a quarter, in a year. We sometimes accomplish goals that most people would take, several years to accomplish. We usually accomplish them in a short period of time. And I think it all starts at, yes, we have lifetime goals, we have 5-year goals, we have 1-year goals, but we really live on the day-to-day. We really live in a weekly structure. And that weekly structure is not so constraining that it doesn't allow for flexibility, but there are certain bumper pads that we have really put up and set up during our weekdays so that we can get a lot of things done and be productive and allow our teams to be productive as well. And the concept that I want to describe and that I want to talk about today is something that Jack and I have been using now for several years. And it's a weekly structure rhythm for success. Yeah. Just like we have structure rhythms of success, for the year and for a quarter, we have them for the week as well. And they really revolve around 3 P's. And actually in this episode, I'm going to talk about 4 P's and not just like the P's that you eat, but P's that stand for number 1, production, number 2, planning, and number 3, play. And the 4th one, I'll leave that one till the end so that I can tease you with it and you guys can tune until the end on what my 4th one is, which is just as important as those 3 P's that you are basically really stepping into in your week, day-to-day basis of activities that you do in order to bring your land investing business forward and, or your house flipping business forward, or whatever business it is. This really is not, really constrained to real estate. So I want to describe what this weekly rhythm, sheet, which I'm actually going to, give you all an opportunity to download here. If you check out the show notes, from this podcast episode, you're going to be able to go ahead and basically download the sheet that I use, that Jack uses, in order for us to basically really come up with and really plan for amazing weeks of either production, of planning, or of play. So the premise is that normally if you're out there as an entrepreneur, as an investor, there's all of these things coming at you at once that are activities that should really be categorized into one of these 3 buckets, whether they're production activities. What do I mean by production? Activities that actually generate revenue. For us in the land investing business, more concretely, that would be an activity where we're actually creating a land listing and we're actually marketing and placing the ads, the listings in different channels, or we're actually talking to a buyer, closing on that property, closing on that buyer. That would be a production type of activity. Yeah. So now let me describe the next type of activity, which is a planning activity. A planning activity would be an activity in which, for example, you're either meeting with your VA and talking about, the mailings that are going to be going out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. And you're basically making sure that you have enough records to mail to, that you have those mailing lists already either set up with your mailing company or set up in your system, in your investment software, investment dominator software, which is our proprietary software. So many of you probably are using this already to invest in land and to really automate 80% of the work, because we already have data integration, we already have the integration to the mailing house and so on and so forth. But in any case, you need to plan for these things, and you need to plan your pipeline, and you need to plan your deal flow. And that would be an activity that would fall under a planning, under a planning bucket. The next type of activity, which stands for the third P, is play. Play, what I mean simply is a 24-hour period or 48-hour period. It just depends on how many free play days you want to have, per week, to really spend time and reconnect with yourself, reconnect with nature, reconnect with your family, and not think about anything pertaining to business. Why is that so important? Because burnout is a real thing. And there is such a thing as the law of diminishing returns, where if you are exhausted mentally, emotionally, where you have not really opened up bandwidth, you don't have the headspace to basically deal with your daily life, with, the challenges that are going to come as we are, in this parenting world. If you're a parent, I am a parent of a 14-year-old, a teenager. So I get thrown at me new different things every single week as far as, challenges, and not because she's a bad child or a bad student or a bad kid, just new things of this new stage in her life that she's entering, in your relationships, you're going to be thrown challenges in your business and so on and so forth. So it's so important for all of us to have really a couple of days where the brain has enough time, not just a block of time in the day of a 1 hour or 2 hour window, which is just as important. But let's be frank and let's be clear. Who has time in this busy life that we all live to really, chunk out 2 hours of me time for yourself every single day, especially if you're a woman? It's sometimes that concept is almost laughable. You may be able to, apportion 15, 20 minutes of me time to do a meditation, to do a prayer, to really reconnect with yourself and so on and so forth, but not necessarily hours. And those few minutes that you do, connect with yourself in the morning before you start your day are incredibly helpful. I'm not saying that they're not helpful. As a matter of fact, I'm a big proponent. Most of what I have, I talk about inside of our episodes of the podcast are about the importance of creating this ease, not just of inflows of cash, but inflows of ease and grace in our life. And how do we cultivate that? By having some me time, some power time in the morning. So it's really important to do it in the morning. But what I'm advocating in this podcast, in this particular episode right now, is the fact that you need to have a 24 to 48 hour period where your brain is not thinking about business at all and is so completely switched off from that, so that you can be present, for family, so that you can be present for creating, amazing memories. Because that's the whole point of us starting a business to begin with, is to have freedom and have a life rich in entrepreneurial freedom, so that we can connect and have a freedom of relationships and have amazing relationships with our kids, with our friends, with our spouses, in our community, in our churches, and so on and so forth. So important to have that 3P. And now, how does this all come together? Because I started by saying that most of us, what we live on the day-to-day or on a weekly basis is what I like to call Neapolitan ice cream, meaning there is chocolate. I don't know if you know what Neapolitan ice cream is, but it's basically an ice cream where you have mixed in it chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. And in order for us to compare to this, I want to say this is the equivalent of having in one day play, plan, and production activities. What that does to you is it really does not allow you to have economics of efficiency in either planning, in either playing, or in production. And what I'm going to suggest to you in today's episode, is that it would be best if you had 80% of your day, of one day that you designate during the week, for it to be a vanilla day. another day for it to be a strawberry day, and another day for it to be a production day, and basically come up with, the 5 or 7 days of the week, and block in the 2 days where you're going to have your play and free time. They don't need to be the weekend, by the way, because when you're your own boss, when you're your own CEO of your land investing business, the weekend that everyone lives by is not the weekend that you live by anymore. Your weekend can be a Tuesday and a Wednesday, but for all practical purposes, that let's block it, and let's say that it's going to be the Saturday and the Sunday, and then you have 5 days left of the week where you have to decide, okay, are my Mondays going to be planning days? Are my Tuesdays going to be, production days? Are my Wednesdays going to be production again, or are they going to be planning? So the other 5 days, if you designate 2 play days for the week, the other 5 days need to be either production or planning days. Yeah. And we already established what is a production day and what is a planning day. But just to reiterate, a production day would be any activity, a day where you spend 80% of your time doing activities that actually produce revenue, that actually bring money in, whether it be talking to buyers, whether it be creating listings, whether it be marketing your properties, whether it be renegotiating with sellers, where you have an 80% of a block time that you have allotted of to work on your side hustle, which is this land investing business. That 80%, if it's a 3-hour time block, that say 2.5 hours or 2 hours of those are spent in this one activity that generates revenue, that is production related. Yeah. Then you might decide that there's 2 days of the week where you need to do a lot of planning, where you need to meet with your team, where you need to meet with your VA, where you need to meet with your coach, where you need to, line certain things up in order for certain closings to happen. And those would be planning days. Those would be activities that I would consider planning, where you also maybe go and identify new markets that you're going to start investing in, where you go and, get lists of vacant landowners, or where you start downloading, if you're using our software, data, for that is going to be good and useful for the next 4 to 6 weeks for you to send to a mailing house and have already, mailings going out like clockwork automatically every single week, so that the phone never stops, so that offer making never stops, because we are not in the business just of sending out letters. We're in the business of making offers, but in order to make offers, we need to get the phone to start ringing. So that's the beginning of the snowball. And so in order to make sure that there's this constant deal flow happening, we need to plan ahead, and we need to set those things up, once a week or once a month. It just depends on how you're doing it. We like, scheduling the mailings for the next 4 to 6 weeks out. That way we don't have to think about it every single week, and we can basically focus on other things. Yeah. So basically that is the premise of this concept of a structure rhythm for the week, of a weekly rhythm for a leader, for a CEO of a land investing business, is to basically designate certain days of the week to be production days, certain days of the week to be planning days, and certain days of the week to be play days, because they're just as important. And even in your planning days, I want to suggest that in order to have fantastic play days, that you should be planning your play days as well, that you should be planning your next vacation, that you should be planning your camping outage for the weekend, that you should be planning a wonderful activity, maybe at the park with your son, with your daughter as a family, that you plan to have extraordinary play days, and that you plan to have extraordinary production days. Those planning days, for a lot of us in, entrepreneurs and investors, which are quick starts that want to get into action and want to start either producing, making money, or, go on an adventure with our family spontaneously on a whim. Those are okay ways to operate. But I'm going to say, and I'm going to argue that in order to consistently be a peak performer, you want to use actually planning days during your week to have phenomenal production days and to have phenomenal play days. And so that's part of what we do, and part of what, this like handy little sheet that if you're interested, you can go to the show notes of the podcast and download, is going to basically walk you through. And one other thing that is incredibly important for Jack and myself that we do always on the Sunday evening, and if we don't get to it on Monday morning, first thing, and that is in coming up with this sheet and deciding which days are going to be for what of that week, we also come up with what are our 3 criticals for the week. And what I mean by 3 criticals are building blocks, large building blocks. Sometimes it's things and activities that you have been procrastinating on because you feel uneasy, because you feel unprepared, because you need, and it's required of you that you muster the courage to do something outside of your comfort zone. And I want to say that more than likely something that you have been postponing because you're scared, or, you haven't mustered the courage to do, or you've been procrastinating on, is one of those pieces that acts as a domino piece, an activity or a critical activity that you should be doing that really moves you incredibly forward, towards obtaining your goals. So those 3 criticals for us, we identify what they are, and it keeps us being brave every single week, believe it or not. Number 2, it gets us to actually do the things that we know that our business requires in order us to make quantum leaps forward. And because we're so engrossed in the day-to-day, we don't have the mental space to think about them once you're in your week. So that's why it's so important to identify ahead of time, what are those 3 criticals for the week, that if you just did absolutely nothing else in your land business, but you did those 3 things, that you would be moving your business forward. So what are those 3 criticals that you're going to do in a specific week? And the number two thing that goes with that is so important is who's going to do it. Because at some point, if you're doing this as a solopreneur, or you're a one-woman show or a one-man show, it's going to be you, the name that is going to be right next, to that 3 criticals. But ideally, what I want to suggest is, as your business starts producing profits inside of, your little cash machine is producing profits, that you're going to start using some of those profits, not just to go and buy bigger properties, to invest in other stuff, to pay, for fun things for your lifestyle, et cetera, but that part of those funds should be going to reinvesting in your business team, in order for that team to really relieve you from a lot of the tasks that are really going to become at some point in your career, your land investing career, really busy activities that don't move the business forward. Yeah. So you want to definitely have a who right next to that critical. And like I said in the beginning, that who is going to be you. Yeah. There's no way around that. But eventually, that I want you to start thinking about, how can this critical activity be outsourced? Who can I outsource it to? Who can I delegate it to? Because a lot of the things that we procrastinate on, we procrastinate on them not because they're difficult, not because they're uncomfortable, even though sometimes I do find that something that is uncomfortable and outside of my comfort zone, I tend to procrastinate on. But what we're going to find is that sometimes we procrastinate on them because we're not so good at them, or because they're incredibly time consuming. And it would be amazing if you brought someone in that would be excited to do that for you, that has the opportunity to, make some extra income, and that is going to do that for you so that you can really focus on the things that move the needle most. So in the beginning, maybe those 3 critters are going to be yours. maybe part of those three criticals are going to be some of them you can already start outsourcing to a VA if you're at that stage in your land investing business, which I hope you get as quickly as possible to it as you can. If you need help in scaling and getting to that level, as quickly as possible, and you want to start really having quantum leaps in a short period of time that would otherwise take you years, of course, we would love to talk to you. We would love to chat with you. You can always go to landcoaching.com, www.landcoaching.com, and book a call with one of our team members to see if you're a fit for our 12-month incubator coaching program, which, I, with an open heart and with a full conviction, can say that is the number one incubator of land investing businesses on the planet, the Harvard of land flipping. Nobody, cares more about the results that we bring to the families that come on board with us like we do. And I can say that, like I said, with conviction, because the results are speaking louder than what, words can say in terms of what we see inside of our program, with first deals every single week being celebrated by our coaching students and by our master coaches, on behalf of their students. So if you would like to know more about that, it's a no pressure call. It's really us finding out whether you're a fit for us, because we need to know that you're coachable, that you are somebody that, is going to be able to do the things that we're going to ask you to do, that has the time, that has, to be frank, even the marketing budget to go out there and start investing in marketing in order for you to actually get deals under contract. Yeah. So it's a fit both ways. So if you're interested, you can always go to landcoaching.com. But anyways, so let's go back now to this weekly rhythm that I was talking to you about, that, I've already described what the first 3 P's are about. And I wanted to leave the last P for the very end, because this is not something that you necessarily need to do during the week, but that you should be doing maybe one time a month, or maybe even 2 days a month, or maybe 2 days a quarter, but start doing it. And that is the 4th P, is projection. And what I mean by projection is projecting into the future, and really giving your mind the opportunity to imagine and to dream up possibilities. I know this sounds a little crazy, but basically this 4th P is really not about being productive in your business, is that about being productive on your business. Basically, you've probably heard of the terminology, you work in your business or you work on your business. Well, this last and 4th P of projecting into the future, of projection, is really about working on your business and about allowing yourself the gift, and your business the gift, of 1 to 2 days during the month or the quarter, whatever is suitable for you, to really kind of like look at what your results have been so far, where you want to go, and what are some things and dreams of opportunities that you would love to have when it comes to perhaps freedom of time, things that you've wanted to do all your life, but you haven't had the opportunity to do them because you didn't have the freedom of time, or things that you wanted to do because you didn't have the freedom of money, because financial constraints restricted you, or questions around, if I was to not want to just do 10 deals a year, but actually do 100 deals a year, how would my day have to look like? What kind of business would I be running? How would my day look like in such a scenario? Like, if you ask yourselves and you kind of like take yourself out, for 1 to 2 days out of your normal space, I am going to even suggest a staycation, or maybe a full day in a beautiful lobby of a hotel. I've done this before, where I go out of my house and there's this beautiful resort here close by. And I go into the lobby of that resort and I basically camp out there for the day. I have lunch in their restaurant, and I'm basically in this beautiful environment where it's different than the environment that I spent my day to day doing production planning and play days in my house, but that I get myself out of that environment and put myself in an environment where there's new things, new stuff happening, and where I allow myself pretty much thinking time to project into the future, new possibilities, think of new opportunities, read, research, and at some point really use those 2 days or 1 day to create and to listen to my own intuition and to my own internal GPS as to how I want to move forward, maybe in my relationship with my husband, maybe in my relationship, parenting relationship with my daughter, in my relationships with my leaders inside of our companies, in the direction that I want to give to any specific line of business that we're in right now. You need to have that space to create that internal, those kind of like a new awakening or a reset inside of yourself, and start listening to an internal prompt, an internal GPS that gives you new direction, that gives you new zest to jump into, again, weeks of planning, production, and play inside of your business. So this is what that fourth P is all about, and it's about really opening yourself up to creativity. It's opening yourself up to really innovation, to thinking in new ways. And in order to think in new ways, I personally like getting outside of my my existing environment and get into a different physical space. So that's why I like going to the lobby of a hotel or booking myself on a staycation. But if you don't have the funds to go on a staycation, like I said, just go to the lobby. Actually, in the very, very beginning, when we were starting our land investing business, I used to do it at the coffee place at the Barnes and Nobles here in Phoenix, Arizona. There was a Barnes and Nobles that was about 8 to 10 minutes away from our home. And that was kind of like my place to go and think about how I'm going to conquer and dominate the world. And inadvertently, what I was doing in those, during those times that I used to go, to Barnes and Nobles to do that, I was really working on that fourth P, on projecting into the future, of really opening myself up to new beliefs, to questioning how I was doing things right now, to researching, to really listening, to what my internal GPS is telling me as far as where I'm at, where I want to go, and how I'm going to fill the gaps in terms of where I want to go. Yeah. And so creativity is born that way, is not born in the day-to-day grind of the production of the planning, or sometimes it might happen, during play days with your family. But if it doesn't happen, then you need to have at least 1 or 2 days, either a month or a quarter, where you work on your business versus in your business, and you give yourself that gift. And you're going to be surprised by, like I said, the level of innovation, the level of trust that is going to also come up in yourself, in basically coming up with new projects, with new ideas, with new ways of doing things, with new beliefs. And it's going to definitely add zest. And that zest is going to undoubtedly, turn into actual profits, because you're going to be taking inspired action in all the things that you're going to be doing on a weekly basis, using the other 3 Ps. So with that, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And like I said, if you want to go to the podcast notes, show notes, you're going to see a link there with the downloadable version of what I just described, this little plan that I have for the week, and which is called a weekly rhythm for leaders. And please rate us on, if you're listening to this on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this, and you enjoyed today's podcast, give us a 5-star review. If you know of someone that is looking for a side hustle, that is looking to really invest in real estate and doesn't know how to get started, that knows that right now, especially during the period of increasing inflation, of interest rates going up, and so on and so forth, and where they know that they need to start making a move, that they need to start doing something and getting in the game in an asset class where we have seen traditionally that no matter what's happening in the economy, we've been able to succeed above anyone else, you definitely want to send them to our next Land Profit Masterclass. We have them every 6 to 8 weeks, and they can register at landprofitmaster.com, or just forward on, this podcast episode to them and have them, be part of the Land Profit Generator world. With that, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to come into your space and giving me just a chance to share with you the things that have worked for me and for Jack as we have built, our real estate investing businesses and really built our lives. So thank you so very much. And until the next episode, bye-bye. I hope this episode left you feeling inspired and ready to get inflows of cash, inflows of light, and inflows of faith in your life. I welcome your reviews on iTunes. Please leave me a review and help me create an amazing community of women in flow. Thank you, as always, for sharing your voice by going to michellebosch.com and joining the conversation about this show. And while you're there, grab a copy of my 10 Commandments to Living a Life in Flow. You can also follow me on Facebook at Michelle Bosch and on Instagram at Michelle Bosch Official. Thank you very much, and until the next one.